The NFL touts itself as the preeminent professional sports league in terms of parity, but their logic is soaked in irony if you ask me. I mean, this will be just the third Super Bowl in the past 20 years that doesn't feature Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Ben Roethlisberger. And let's be honest, the New England Patriots have had a stranglehold on the AFC and the NFL really for the past 2 decades. A better way to characterize the NFL is that it's a league in which truly anything can happen, both on any given Sunday and in any given year. When there is only 16 games slotted on the calendar, the degree of randomness, let's call it, skyrockets. It isn't like baseball where the season has 162 games and the playoffs feature 5 and 7 game series. And as a result, we have seen some pretty crazy stories that come out of the NFL. Think about it, even if you just look at the past couple of years, the situations are countless. In 2017, Nick Foles, a career backup, led the Philadelphia Eagles on an epic postseason run that finished with the Birds taking home the franchise's first ever Lombardi trophy. In 2018, Patrick Mahomes earned the league MVP in his first season as a starter. But amid all the madness that swirls through the NFL, there is only one season that no one talks about, which was absolutely ridiculous. The year was 2008, and boy was it a wild one. And the mayhem started early in week 1 of the season. The aforementioned New England Patriots were coming off of an epic 2007 campaign that saw them come one giant loss away from completing the first perfect season since the 1972 Miami Dolphins. For most teams, such a deflating end to a year would be cause for concern in the following season. Call it a Super Bowl hangover on steroids. But as we have learned, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and the Patriots are simply wired differently, and common logic doesn't apply to them for whatever reason. Besides, most of the core from that beastly 2017 was still intact, so expectations were high when they went to run it back in 2008. But all that hope was derailed almost immediately in Week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs when the reigning league MVP Tom Brady went down with a torn ACL. The New England faithful were understandably devastated, but like I said before, the Pats are just wired differently. Behind the leadership of Belichick and the steady play of Matt Castle, who made a small fortune off of his play that season, were able to cobble together an impressive 11-5 campaign without the reigning league MVP. But what makes the story even stranger is 11-5 wasn't even good enough to qualify for the playoffs that year. Instead, New England earned the dubious honor of posting the best record without making the postseason since the 1985 Denver Broncos. And as shocked as the Patriots players and fans were that their season ended in December for the first time since 2003, there was equal shock around the league from watching the Miami Dolphins bounce-back campaign unfold as they stole the division title. Yes, you heard it right. There was a time during this millennium that the Miami Dolphins and the not New England Patriots won the AFC East. Granted, the Dolphins had an assist with the whole Tom Brady out for the year thing, but they had an impressive season in their own right, finishing 11-5 and earning the tiebreaker over New England by splitting the season series and having the better divisional winning percentage. If the Miami Dolphins winning the AFC East isn't strange enough for you, maybe some context will help. For starters, they were coming off of an NFL worst 1-15 season in 2007, tying the 1999 Indianapolis Colts for the greatest single-season turnaround in NFL history with their 10-game improvement. Not only was the previous year a disaster, but the Dolphins actually started the 2008 season off with 2 losses and had a matchup with New England slated for Week 3. That was when first-year head coach Tony Sparano broke out his secret weapon, which the Dolphins used to torture opponents all season, the Wildcat formation. During that Week 3 game against the Pats in Gillette Stadium no less, Dolphins running back Ronnie Brown ran for 4 touchdowns and added 1 through the air out of the innovative formation. And the kicker for the strangeness bubbling up in the AFC that season? To clinch the division, the Dolphins needed to defeat the Jets in Week 17, which they did by a score of 24-17. Now, the Jets losing a late-season game isn't very uncommon, but 2008 was the one season that Packers legend Brett Favre wore the dark New York green instead of Green Bay's green and yellow, which, let's be honest, was a very weird visual. That's not to say that Favre's time in the Meadowlands was a complete disaster, because it wasn't. The Jets started off the season 8-3 and looked poised to take the AFC East crown after the injury to Brady, but they faltered down the stretch, losing 4 of their last 5 and missing the playoffs entirely. The other pseudo-New York team, the Giants, also fell victim to the madness of 2008. They were coming off of one of the most improbable Super Bowl runs of all time, and with Super Bowl 42 MVP Eli Manning and a stellar young defensive core returning, many experts were predicting an impressive encore performance from them. And to be fair, they weren't wrong. New York burst out of the States to an 11-1 start, and they were dominating on both sides of the ball. In addition to their nasty defense, the Giants were loaded with talent on the offensive side of the ball too. During that 2008 season, they became just a 5th team in NFL history to have 2 players notch 1,000-yard rushing seasons. But before their Week 13 matchup with the Washington Redskins, another abnormality happened, one that stood out in a year filled with them. Eli's best red zone target and one of the heroes from Super Bowl 42, Plaxico Burress, found himself in a rather precarious situation.
Key details are emerging about the moments after Giants receiver Plaxico Burress accidentally shot himself.
The Friday night before the Sunday game against the Redskins, Burress was at a New York City nightclub, Latin Quarter, when he accidentally shot himself in the leg. Fortunately, the injury was not life-threatening, but Burress did not have a license to carry the gun in New York, which is pretty frowned upon, and the Giants ended up cutting him for violating the NFL's personal conduct policy. Harsh, but this was not the troubled wideout's first issue. New York would end up defeating the Redskins that Sunday, but lost 4 of its last 5 regular season games before falling to divisional rival Philadelphia at home in the divisional round of the playoffs. A brutal end to a once promising season for the not-so-defending champs. One of the Giants' former signal callers, Kerry Collins, also contributed to the bizarre 2008 NFL season by pulling off what was probably the best season of his career in year 14 down in Nashville. The Titans were coming off of a 10-6 season that was marred with inconsistent quarterback play from their former first-round draft pick, Vince Young, and many sports writers were anticipating some regression for the Titans, at least in terms of their record. In Week 1, Tennessee played an ugly back-and-forth game with Jacksonville, in part because of Young's inability to protect the football. Head coach Jeff Fisher decided he saw enough and threw in Collins in the fourth quarter, and he proceeded to lead the Titans down the field on a lengthy touchdown drive, punctuated by an explosive game-winning score by Lindale White. Fisher decided he liked what he saw enough to keep Collins in the following week, and the Titans kept winning, jumping out to a franchise-best 10-0 start, including a victory over the heavily favored Peyton Manning-led Colts. The Titans went on to win the AFC South, posting a record of 13-3, and Collins started the rest of the games that year. To put this in perspective, Collins hadn't won 13 games the previous 5 seasons combined, and he would only win 2 more games as a starter across the final 3 years of his career. While the Titans would lose a tightly contested divisional round matchup with the Baltimore Ravens, it was still an impressive last stand for Collins, who made it to the Pro Bowl that year. As surprising as the Titans' rise and fall was, the Baltimore Ravens were another team that vastly exceeded expectations during the 2008 season, especially considering that the Ravens had an entirely new regime come in after the 2007 season. They replaced Super Bowl winning head coach Brian Billick after finishing last in the AFC North in 2007 with a 5-11 record. They brought in rookie head coach John Harbaugh, who had been a long-time special teams coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And what's more, they also featured a rookie quarterback out of the University of Delaware by the name of Joe Flacco.
Hey, let me tell you about my favorite pizza, my way. $10, any pizza. Hut Hut, Pizza Hut. Flacco's favorite. Check it out.
Only increasing the degree of difficulty, the Ravens had the 4th toughest strength of schedule in the NFL based on opponents' win-to-loss ratio from the 2007 season, as their competition won just over 55% of their games that year. And if that wasn't enough, Baltimore was forced to move their bye week up to Week 2 because the Texans, who they were scheduled to play, had severe structural damages to their stadium from Hurricane Ike. But they flourished under Harbaugh and finished the season 11-5, notching a couple of playoff wins along the way. Baltimore's impressive turnaround gained a lot of notoriety as they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game before being sent home by the eventual Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Interestingly, the Ravens were not the only team to have a shocking run to the playoffs behind a rookie quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons, who were also very much a franchise in flux, rallied behind number 3 overall pick Matt Ryan. To say that the Falcons were in flux is actually kind of an understatement. They were coming off of one of the most tumultuous seasons in recent history. Ahead of the 2007 season, word broke that their game-breaking, playmaking Pro Bowl quarterback Michael Vick was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison following the arrest and subsequent conviction for his involvement in a legal dogfighting ring. Talk about a curveball. 1 second, you have the league's most exciting young quarterback and appear to be on the precipice of building a real contender, and the next thing you know, your signal caller is behind bars. It was clearly too much to handle for some people in the building, as then head coach Bobby Petrino resigned in the middle of the 2007 season to take a job in the college ranks at the University of Arkansas. Anyway, the 2008 Falcons rallied behind first-time head coach Mike Smith all the way to an 11-5 record, earning Smith AP NFL Coach of the Year honors. The Falcons' miracle run would get cut short earlier than the Ravens did, losing a tightly contested wildcard game against the Arizona Cardinals, who would go on to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl thanks to their own Cinderella story. The 2008 Cardinals were led by former All-Pro Kurt Warner, who in the 6 years since his time with the greatest show on turf had compiled a record of 13-29. Yuck. Nevertheless, 2008 was the year of why not, and Warner earned Pro Bowl honors for the first time since 2001, throwing for over 4,500 yards and notching 30 touchdowns, good for the second and third highest totals of his career respectively. Sadly, Warner and the Cardinals' miracle run ended with a heartbreaking loss to the Steelers in Super Bowl 43, a game that included an insane pick six by James Harrison at the end of the first half, and an iconic game-winning tiptoe by Santonio Holmes in the back of the end zone during the final seconds of regulation. All in all, the 2008 NFL season was one for the books. It was loaded with storylines, insane team turnarounds, rookie standouts, and resurgent vets. Yes, it was one crazy year, yet still no one seems to remember it. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, then like the video. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS every single day for more cool videos. We'll see you next time.